Then Bobby's father should carry the amount to an address specified in the letter and wait there near a public phone. The message included a threat to kill Bobby if he informed the police. The message they sent to Bobby's family. Leopold and Loeb's plan was to contact Bobby's father again after he arrived at the public phone they had specified in their letter. They were going to ask him to enter the nearby train station and get a ticket to another city, and at a certain stage of the journey, at a specific point. Bobby's father had to go to the back of the train and throw the money out, so the two killers would come and pick it up without exposing themselves to any danger. It was a genius plan. Indeed, at 4 o'clock that afternoon, the two killers called the public phone they had assigned to Bobby's father. But no one responded. They called back several times, but there was no response, so one of them looked at the other anxiously. What happened? Did the plan fail? What the two young men did not realize at the time was that a farmer found Bobby's body the morning after the crime. Of course, the police did not know who the dead man was, but they looked into the reports recently submitted about the loss of a teenage boy, and there was only one report submitted by Bobby's family, so the police called them, and Bobby's uncle went to examine the body in the morgue. That afternoon, while Bobby's father was preparing to get into his car to go to the place that the two killers had specified to receive the ransom money, his wife's brother called him from the morgue and told him that the body belonged to Bobby. But the two killers did not learn that the police had found Bobby's body until 2 days later when the local newspapers published the news. Despite the failure of the second part of their plan, they did not care much. Money was not their goal, and there was absolutely nothing that could lead the police to them. Even the typewriter on which they printed the ransom demand, they destroyed it and buried it. They were certain that they had left behind no evidence or trace. But they were wrong. The spectacles that led to the killers, even though the police investigations were going in the wrong direction and completely far from the real killers, as suspicions fell on Bobby's teachers at the school and 2 of them were actually detained. But the hand of fate intervened to bring things back to normal. The police had summoned Bobby's father to ask him about some matters, and after the investigation was over, while Bobby's father was preparing to leave, the investigator handed him glasses, saying that they were Bobby's glasses that they had found next to his body. Bobby's father was surprised by this and said that his son was not wearing glasses. The police then learned that the glasses belonged to the killer. In fact, the glasses belonged to Leopold, and they fell from him while transporting the body under the vault. The police did not give this evidence much importance, as there are millions of people who wear glasses, and it is unlikely that the glasses would lead to the discovery of the killer. But when they showed the glasses to the lens expert, he told them that their lenses were made using a very rare mechanism, and by referring to the records, it turned out that there were only 3 people in Chicago who owned such glasses. One of them was Nathan Leopold, who became the main suspect in the case because he lived in the same neighborhood and had knowledge. Owed to Bobby and his family. The police arrested them. When the police asked Leopold about his glasses, he said that they had fallen off while he was practicing his hobby of watching wild birds. When asked about his whereabouts during the night of Bobby's murder, he claimed that he was with Loeb and that they spent the evening with 2 prostitutes. So the police began investigating Loeb as well, and when the 2 were questioned in private, some contradiction emerged in their statements. Then the investigators realized that they were hiding something, and as they put more pressure on them, they began to collapse. Loeb was the first to confess. He claimed that he did not kill Bobby. He said that he was driving the car and that Leopold was the one who had dealt the fatal blow to the boy. When they told Leopold about this, he too had no choice but to escape. Confessing, he also claimed that he was not the killer, and that Loeb was the one who killed Bobby. It is not known to this day which of them was telling the truth and which of them was lying. News of the arrest of the 2 killers quickly spread like wildfire. It was a strange crime that gained widespread attention. The 2 killers admitted that they did not need money, and that the motive for their crime was nothing but the pleasure of killing itself. and realizing the idea of the ideal integrated crime that captured them. In court with the lawyer, the trial of the two young men was called the trial of the century, and everyone expected that they would receive the death penalty, but their wealthy parents appointed one of the most famous, eloquent and successful lawyers in America at that time, lawyer Clarence Darrow, and entrusted him with the task of defending their sons. Darrow was known for his strong opposition to the death penalty, and during the trial he delivered one of the most amazing arguments in the history of the American judiciary. He succeeded in saving the necks of his clients from the noose, and instead each of them received a life sentence. Prison life was not easy for two wealthy young men. In 1936, Loeb was slaughtered with a razor during a quarrel with another colleague in the bathroom who wanted to sexually assault him. As for Leopold, he spent 33 years in prison, and was not released until 1958 after obtaining an amnesty. He was released after 33 years. Leopold had difficulty reintegrating into society. The ghosts of the past kept haunting him and people were avoiding him. So he tried to get away from all of that by immigrating to Puerto Rico, where he married a widow and worked for years as a mathematics teacher. Before his death, he wrote a book about birds in Puerto Rico. Nathan Leopold died of a heart attack in 1971. Leopold's death did not mean the death of his story, as the crime he committed with his friend Loeb is still of interest to scholars and researchers in the field of criminal, psychological, and legal sciences. This crime confirms that the motives for murder are not always related to poverty, wrong upbringing, or sexual motives, as most people think. There are those who kill for no other reason than for the pleasure and joy of killing. The story of Leopold and Loeb has been quoted in many films and series, the most famous of which is Alfred Hitchcock's film Rope in 1948 and the film Accra in 1959. In conclusion, were they really smart? After reading this story, I personally began to ask myself, were Leopold and Loeb really as intelligent as they were described? Why didn't they bury the body instead of throwing it under a bridge? If they had done that, they might have gotten away with it. But they may have deliberately not buried the body. Perhaps it was a challenge for them, to commit a murder and have it be visible and get away with it. There are those who say that the Leopold and Loeb case is evidence that there is no perfect crime, but I think they are wrong, as there are actually crimes in which the identity of the killer is never known. The most famous of them is the case of Jack the Ripper, the Black Dahlia, the Zodiac Ripper, and many, many other cases that remain unsolved to this day. Indeed, there are countries where innocent people are killed every day and the killers escape from any punishment. There is no solace for the victims except the hope of justice and punishment in the afterlife.